Most people, when thinking of a gifted student, will have a certain picture come to mind. They'll think of a quiet student who can easily get all A's. And while this student may be gifted, many gifted students are not very successful in school. These students may be gifted in non-traditional areas, but one thing that they do have in common with other gifted students is the way that they all think. Brockide says, gifted children show enhanced sensory activation and awareness. And all this means is their brains think differently than normal students. And this pattern of thinking is what makes them gifted and unique. These students may not succeed in the traditional areas of the classroom, but they have an enhanced creativity, critical thinking skills, maybe leadership skills, and there are many other areas that they may succeed in. However, these students are often not identified as gifted at the same rate, and therefore they are not provided with the support and the opportunities that they need in order to be successful. Now, the major issue with this is the lack of identification. These students may not succeed in the traditional classroom, and it makes it much more difficult for teachers and parents to identify them as being gifted. However, these students still need the same resources in order to succeed. They need to be challenged adequately and provided with outlets to express their creativity or giftedness in other ways. These students learn in different ways than the normal student, so a traditional classroom may not provide them with the best opportunities to be successful. Normal curriculum does not often promote the same higher level of thinking that they are capable of. Peter Tate says, normal curriculum allows for little or no original thought, and even entirely discourages creative thinking and intelligent responses. And this is why these gifted students need to be provided with advanced learning opportunities. A big sign that these gifted students are not identified properly is the rate that minority students are identified as gifted. They are identified as gifted at a much lower rate than white students are. This just shows that teachers may not be prepared to identify gifted students who express their giftedness in unconventional ways. But why does this happen? Well, many teachers out there are not GT certified. They may have had some GT training in college, but they are not properly certified to handle these types of students. They may not be familiar with the characteristics that some students show in order to, and they are not prepared to identify these students. Some tests fail to identify these students as gifted as well. Joan Harris says, standardized testing does a poor job of measuring students' achievement, and this even happens with proper GT testing. It's important that the teacher is aware of the characteristics of these students and why standard testing may not adequately identify these students. So the question still remains, what can we do? The overarching theme here is the lack of awareness of these advanced characteristics. It's important to educate, it's important for people to educate these teachers and have adequate GT training so they can identify these students that may show their gifted characteristics in less common ways. It's also important for parents to understand how their child may be gifted in less common ways. The teachers also need to know how to incorporate gifted kids into their classrooms so they can receive that support without having to take them out of the classroom for the entire day. If they can receive adequate support while still being involved in the classroom, this is a much more productive environment for these students. For the local level, a lot of schools may not have enough gifted certified teachers. Some schools may only have a few employees or teachers that are GT certified, and it makes it much more difficult for them to identify the students at a lower level, and they can easily advance through the ranks without ever, being identified by teachers. It also, the more teachers that are certified, it creates an environment of, better productivity for these students. They can be incorporated into the classroom much easier, and these teachers are better equipped on how to handle these students because occasionally these students can be very difficult to handle in the classroom. They are often very talkative, very energetic, and that can be difficult for many teachers. But at individual level, it's also important to understand these concepts, especially if you're a parent of students. Students may not have the opportunities in normal classrooms to display all these characteristics, but parents can observe them in a more comfortable environment where they can work at their own pace at home. And it's important for parents to understand this because they are encouraged to recommend their child for GT services if they do believe that they display these characteristics. So overall, gifted and talented services can be a very tricky subject, but it's important that these students get the support and opportunities in order to succeed. It's important for teachers and students to understand the complexity of giftedness and how it can manifest itself in different students. For many of these students, it will be very tough for them to succeed if they do not get proper resources. But if they are given these opportunities to succeed, many of these students will go on to achieve many great things. Thank you.